Hello friends, welcome. Today we will going to study a new chapter in physics, and that is work and energy. Okay, we will start this chapter today, and in this chapter we will going to apply the concepts of the chapters that you have previously studied, that is motion, that is we can say the laws of motion, that is the force, the concept of force, and the equations of motion, and all these kinds of concepts. Okay, so we will apply all those concepts in this chapter as well. And so before watching this chapter, before starting this chapter, make your concepts clear with those two chapters. Okay, if you are very much clear with those two chapters, this would be a very easy chapter for you. Okay, it's more theoretical compared to the practical. Okay, you need not to solve bigger problems or apply lots of mathematics, but in this chapter we will going to see the general concept, the general definition of two very important quantities. Okay, they are work and energy. So to start with, till now you have studied that the force, okay, you have studied how the force is applied to move some object, to move an object, to change the motion or to change the position of an object. Okay, for example, if I am standing here, to move somewhere I have to apply force internally so that I can move to that point. Okay, or if you throw a ball, you have to apply force to the ball to go up in the sky, and if the ball comes down, you say that this is due to the gravitational force, the force applied by the earth. So it clears us that force is a quantity which is used to change the position or to change the motion of an object. Okay, but we studied about those forces till now which are constant, okay, which are not varying, which are 100%, we say that they are constant. But in practical situations, you will not find any force to be constant throughout. There has to be, or there will be, a sum of the difference in the force. The force will not always remain constant. For example, we say that when we throw a ball in the sky, we say that the gravitational force on that ball is a constant, but as you know it very well, that you have studied in the gravitation, that the gravitational force, the acceleration due to gravity, it changes with the height. Okay, it changes with the distance from the center of the earth. We know that it is negligible, it do not make any much difference, but still there is some error. It's a very small error, but still there is some error which tells us that force is not constant. There is a difference in the force. So we see that in practical situations you will find that force is not constant, force varies from point to point. Okay, so that's why we gave a new conception, we defined a new concept, we defined a quantity which may help us to understand the force better, okay, to understand the motion of the objects better. Now you might wonder why we are studying the motion of the objects, what we have to do with this. See, it's very simple. In practical life, you see that motion is how much is related to our lifestyle. Okay, motion is something which we used to perform daily, but we unknowingly perform it. Okay, for example, the movement of car, the movement of celestial bodies. Okay, your speaking, your hand movement, your gestures. So all these are things what they are basically the motion. So to understand the motion helps us to solve some practical problems, some practical issues. Okay, it helps us to understand how the bulb is, how the bulb glows, or how some car moves. Okay, or how the celestial bodies they interact or move in the solar system or in the universe. Okay, so that's why the motion is something which is very important and very closely related to our lifestyle. And to understand motion better, we develop the concept of force, we understand what exactly the force means, but still there are something which are still difficult, which are still complex to understand, to be understood by the concept of force. Okay, so again we developed one more concept and we call that concept as work. Okay, we define this concept of work. Now, as we see, work is something which is related to force. We will understand it, how it is related to force, and work gives energy. Work is also related to energy, or we can say force is something to which work is related and energy is something which is related to work. So we will say that force and energy are interrelated. There is a relation between these three things. Okay. In general terms, if I ask you what is energy, you can define it very easily, but in scientific way we have some specific definitions of energy. Okay. And please remember, work and energy are the two things which are very closely related to each other. Okay. In fact, I will say they are almost same. Okay. With each other, they are almost same, they are highly correlated with each other. So for understanding this concept, let's start our study with the concept of work. Okay. Now, as I say work, what first thing comes in your mind? If I ask you to define work, what will you say? What definition will you give? In the first way, in the first situation, if I say please define work, some of the definitions will come in your mind, that you will say I am teaching here, so it's a work. You are studying, it's a work. You are walking, you are playing, or let's say you are cycling, or you are just sleeping. Okay, you feel that when you sleep there is no work, but still there is some work. We will understand how it is. So what we can say, that if I tell you to define the work, you will say that all the kinds of activities that you do daily is work. If you are studying, you say it's work. If you are speaking, you say it's work. If you are cycling, you will say it's work. Okay. Or if you are trying to push a very heavy wall. Okay. If you are trying to push a wall and if you want to move, if you are trying to move that wall, okay, you will again say that yes, I have done some work because I was trying to push the wall, but it is not moving. That's not my fault. But I am trying to push the wall, so I am sweating right now. I feel energyless, I am very much tired, so it means I have done work. Okay, this is how we intuitively feel what is work. Okay, so from this point we will say that work has two definitions. Okay, work has two explanations. One is intuitive meaning and the second one is scientific meaning. That how the scientists feel what is work and how a common person like you and like me feel what is work. So our feeling is that work means something which is like a job, it's like an activity that you do. Okay, if I am trying to push this wall, even though I cannot move this wall, but still I am trying, I am pushing this wall, I am sweating, I am very much tired, I will say yes, I have done work. I tried to push this wall, but this wall is moving. So I say that work is done, I have done some work. But in actual meaning, in terms of scientist, if a scientist look at you and what he will say that since you haven't moved this wall even a single millimeter, it means you haven't done any work. Okay. So if I talk about the conception of work or the concept of or the conceptualization of work, we will say work is related to two quantities, and those two quantities are, first quantity is force. Okay, so scientists define this, the scientists or the scholars who researched in this field, they define that work is basically related to two quantities. One is force and there is another quantity which we call as displacement. Okay, so according to the scientist, work means displacement and force. It's a combination of two things, that is, one is force and another is displacement. Okay, this is how the scientist gives us the definition. So what does this mean? It means that if you are applying force, you know it very well that if you are trying to do some activity, definitely you have to apply some force. For example, if you are reading a notebook, okay, you have to move your eyes, okay, or you have to think, okay. So in thinking process also the mind involves some processing, okay, in your mind. So that processing is like it's a something work, okay. You have to apply the force. So it means not it's like not actually you are applying the force by your hands. It's like the muscles inside your body or the brain cells, they are applying some force, they are doing some work, okay. So it means force is something called displacement and work. So what I will say that if I talk about work, so you need to think about two things, okay. You have to go for only two things, and that is force and displacement. If there is no force, then no work can be done. If there is no displacement, then no work can be done. For example, I am walking on a road which is frictionless. If there is no friction, okay, on this road or on this floor, and I am continuously walking like this, okay. So if there is no friction, can the force be applied? No, obviously not, because there is no friction. So if there is no friction but still I am walking on the road, I will say that no work is done, because for the work, force and displacement both should be there, okay. Or the second example, if I am trying to push this wall, I am applying huge force, I am trying to push this wall, but if there is no displacement, if this wall do not displace even a single centimeter or a single millimeter from its position, I will say that no work is done. But although in that situation also you felt exhausted, you felt tired because you applied lot of force and you are continuously sweating, so it means there has to be work, but scientifically you haven't done any work, okay. So try to digest this situation, try to digest the conception of work, that if there is no force, no work can be done. If there is no displacement, no work can be done, okay. In this way we will say the conception of work defines, it says that work done is basically force into displacement, okay. So the scientific formula for the work done is force into displacement. Imagine if force is 0, so this particular equation will give work done is equals to 0. If displacement is 0, again this definition will give work done is equals to 0, okay. So this is how we define the work, and to represent work we use capital letter W, okay, is equals to force is capital S and capital F, and in place of displacement we put S, okay. Remember this S, we studied it in motion. In motion we learned that to represent the displacement we use S, okay, instead of D or instead of X or anything, we use S for the representation of work done, for the displacement, okay. So this is how the definition of work is given. This is how the definition of work is given. So according to this definition, if this pushing of the wall is not work, if my walking on a frictionless road is not work, then what is work? Then how can be work done, or in which situation we can see work is done? So for that, let's take a very simple example. Let's say this is the floor and this is a box, okay. This is a box and I am trying to push this box, okay. I am trying to push this box, I am pushing it like this, and by this force that I am applying, due to my pushing of this box, let's say this box moved a distance S, okay. Let's say this box moved a distance S. So in this case I will say, since this box is moved by a distance S due to the application of this force F, I will say here the work is done, okay. Here we will say that yes, there is a work done, because this box, by applying this force, by pushing this box, okay, by applying this F force, okay, or the pushing force, this block has moved s distance. Its displacement is s, that's why we will say yes, work is done. Okay. So try to imagine the situation. There is force, yes, that is we are applying. There is displacement, yes, that is there is displacement definitely. So it means there is a finite displacement. Okay. It do not matter how much small this displacement is. If there is displacement, work will be done. Okay. And it do not matter how much small force you are applying. If you are applying force, definitely the work is done. Okay. So due to this movement, due to the movement of this block, because of this force, we will say yes, work is done. Because this is how we define the work. Okay. Try to digest the situation, try to digest the conceptualization of work. Okay. Now this is one example. Let's say one more. If this is the floor, okay, and on this floor, let's say this is a box, and I am trying to, this time, let's say I am trying to pull this box in this direction by applying a force F. Okay. Here I am pushing the box, but let's say here I am pulling the box. I am standing here and I am trying to pull this box like this, in this way. And due to this force, if the block moves by, let's say, a distance s, okay, if the block moves, let's say, by a distance s, we will say here also the work is done. So it do not matter whether I am pushing a box or I am pulling a box or pushing an object or pulling an object. If there is displacement in the work, in the object, we will say yes, the work is done. Okay. So in this case, I will say that work is done. Or let's say, this is a heavy block. Okay, let's say it's a 10 kg block, and I am holding it in my hand like this. Okay, if I do not move this block, if I am holding it like this, what do you think? If you hold a block of 10 kg in your hand like this, you have to apply a lot of energy from your body to hold it like this. But according to scientific definition of work, if it is not moving, if it is stationary, if it is at rest at this position only, we will say work is not done. Or if you are continuously only holding this block like this, if you are not moving it anywhere, it means according to the scientific definition of work, you haven't done any work. Okay, there is no work done by you if it is in a stationary position. Okay. So you can see, if I am holding it like this, if it's a 10 kg block, definitely I have to apply a lot of energy from my body to hold it in this position. But scientists say that they do not count as a work. You cannot count it as a work. But if I am moving it like this, so if this movement is happening, I will say yes, there is a work done. Okay, it do not matter how much force I am applying, only that motion has to be done, then only we will say yes, the force, the work is done. Okay. So in one more example, if I say that, let's say this is the floor, okay, let's say this is the floor and there is a block kept on this floor. So in this case, what I did, I applied a force in this direction, and in this case also I had applied the force in this direction. The only difference in these two is here I am pushing, here I am pulling. Okay. Let's say in this case I applied the force, I try to lift this block in this direction by applying a force F. Okay. Let's say what I am doing, I am trying to lift it up. Okay. Let's say this is a 100 kg block. Okay, and I am continuously trying to lift it up. Okay, I am trying to lift it up, but will it going to move if it's a 100 kg block? Obviously not. If it is not moving, then although you are applying huge energy from your body, but the scientists say that no work is done because this haven't moved anything. Okay, it is moved anywhere, so that's why work is not done. But imagine if this block is moved by a distance, let's say by a distance s. If this block has moved by a distance s, we will say yes, the work is done. Because for work we need to have two quantities, that is force and the displacement. So according to this situation, if the block has moved this distance, we will say the work is done. Okay. So I think you are very much clear that when we need to say that work is done and when we need to say the work is not done. So let's try to summarize this. Work can only be done when both force, or let me write it as F only, F and S are present. Okay. The second situation we will say that if there is force but no displacement, the work will not be done. Means if I am trying to push this wall, so I am applying force, I am applying huge force, but it is not moved from this position, so there is no displacement. And if there is no displacement, there is no work. So here we will say work cannot be done if there is no displacement. Okay, if there is no displacement, no work. And what if I am moving on a frictionless this floor, what will happen? If I am moving on a frictionless floor, then there is no work, there is no force applied by the floor. Okay, you know that friction helps us to move on the floor, and if I am moving on a frictionless floor and there is no force available because there is no friction, but still I am moving, my displacement is there, but there is no force, so it means we will say work is not done. So in the third situation we say work cannot be done, or work cannot be said to be done if there is no force. Okay. So the necessity is that force and displacement should both be present to conceptualize work, or to have some finite work. Okay. Okay, so this is a basic introduction to the work. First you note this, and then we will continue our discussion with this formula of work, and we will understand some special cases related to this formula, and also we will define what is work, what is the unit of the work. Okay, so please note this.